Hello again, welcome back to another video. I've been asked by quite a few of you to look at what tools I use when I'm attempting to repair cameras. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. The first thing I'd say about trying to repair something is take it very cautiously, very slowly, record what you're doing and what you're taking apart and kind of how it goes back together. Lenses can be quite difficult to take apart and even harder to get back together. I haven't tackled any zoom lenses because there's too many elements in them and they're too complicated. I do repair and clean prime lenses. That's those with a fixed focal length, but I don't feel confident tackling zooms, and I don't tend to mess about with AF lenses. A lot of the stuff you buy or acquire hopefully is working. Sometimes it's just as simple as cleaning a battery compartment. I use vinegar. This is just normal household vinegar, the sort of thing that us Brits put on chips and fries and fish and stuff. That works quite well at getting rid of the pasty remnants of leaked batteries, and quite often that will get things going again. It's quite a common thing to find is cameras for sale or given by relatives that maybe has batteries left in them. Flash guns for some reason seem to be the most common thing I run into where batteries have been left in there and leaked, which is a bit of a shame. If you own a camera, there are some basic things that you should be having, things like a rocket blower. You use this to get rid of dust, either internally or in a mirror, on a mirror or a focusing screen. Lens wipes are quite useful. If you want to actually clean a lens, I recommend using what's it called now? Deionized water, the stuff you put in a kettle, and use some of these things, Q-tips or cotton buds, depending on whereabouts in the world you're living. These ones aren't so good because these are safety ones. They're designed that you can't push them right into your ear. But I tend to trim them down because this gets in the way in a lot of instances. And if you're cleaning a lens element, just do a quarter at a time. Just dab these in some distilled water and just dab it on a towel to take the excess off, and small gentle circular motions will clean lenses quite well. So that was all you'd really need for sort of general camera care. A soft cloth maybe, nothing too abrasive. But when we actually come to repair tools, we'll start, this is in no particular order, with lenses. This is a set of lens rubbers. You can buy these online. They come in different sizes, and because they're rubber, they tend to stick. So if you need to take parts of a lens off, or even parts of a camera, some of the ornamental bits on cameras, particularly on advanced levers on the top, they unscrew, but they're also very shiny and you don't want to damage them, so these come in very handy for that kind of job. So this is a set of lens rubbers, all sorts of different sizes, very useful, particularly when you're working on lenses, or like I say, some of the advanced levers on cameras. Blower brush, these are a bit old-fashioned nowadays, but they're still quite useful. Very soft bristles on there, quite good for getting dust out of SLRs, particularly around the mirror area, and it does have a bit of a blow function. They've really been superseded now by the rocket blowers. These are incredibly popular. Well, and they got more blow to them, these ones. But yeah, if you own a camera, you need to have some sort of basic kind of things for cleaning it and that kind of thing, for cleaning the lenses. I'd advise always keeping a filter on the front element of your lens, like a UV or something, but make sure the filter is a good one. There's no point in putting a £10 filter on front of a £600 lens, because that's not really going to work out too well normally. So when it actually comes to taking things apart, and it's probably the most important thing about this video, if you can take it away, is that Japanese manufactured cameras use tools that look remarkably, well, use screws that look remarkably similar to Western country ones like Germany, etc. However, they're not. They're made to what's called the Japanese industry standard. They're branded as JIS. And although a lot of the cameras you come across will look like they're screw threads, like they're a Phillips or a crosshead, they're actually JIS, and a Phillips or a crosshead stands a good chance of rounding them out, particularly if they're made of a soft metal. On the older cameras, a lot of the screws are brass. That's very, very easy to damage. So a set of JIS tools, I've got two here. The main difference with them is that they're very, very thin on the end. You'll notice the actual contact parts here. If this camera can focus, actually probably can't. See how thin that is compared to a standard sort of screwdriver that we have here in Europe, particularly. Probably in North America it's much the same. And you'll find that some screwdrivers won't fit. You need the thinner type, and those are JIS ones. Again, you can pick these sets up fairly cheaply. I've got a couple of sets of these. They're very, very useful, and they work, and they don't damage screws and such like that you're taking apart that you want to remove. Remember, don't force anything. Old cameras were built by people. They weren't built by machines, so nothing should be overly tight. If it is, use some what do you call it, some of those oils that penetrate in like a penetrating fluid, and clean the dirt out again with a cotton swab. For lenses, one of these, this is a lens spanner. They're adjustable. This isn't a brilliant set. I'm in the process of getting a better set than this one, but this is the idea of a lens spanner, and these are interchangeable. So you've got this sort of notched type, and you've also got a screwdriver type, and there is a pointed type as well. The issue I have with these is that even on the smallest setting, you can't often turn them when they're inside somewhere. So you can get them with an angled tip on them, so it comes down and sort of goes off at an angle. So I think those would work a lot better, and you can have the angle either going out or going in. But yeah, this was a basic cheap set I bought off of eBay. It does the job, but there are better tools out there, and some things it just can't be used on. You can't get into it, and these are a little bit too wide. These need to be ground down to make these a bit thinner across the bottom. They're a bit too wide to fit in a lot of lens rings, for example. A lot of the lenses in their construction, they use these screw-in rings that hold elements and things in place, and this doesn't do a particularly good job of getting them out. Paintbrush, great way of getting rid of dust. Don't use it for painting. This is a new brush, or it was a new brush, but just use that for getting rid of dust, etc., because you will find that on things. I've got another selection of tools over here. So yeah, I have got some normal screwdrivers, but they don't tend to be used on things too much. Tweezers are useful. Some of these parts are incredibly small. They're difficult to get out, and they're difficult to replace. I should have another set of tweezers somewhere as well. Yeah, these ones. Fine point tweezers. Should be a cover over those to protect the tips of them. Toothbrush for cleaning, again, very useful. Maybe some very fine metal polish, or I sometimes use toothpaste, which is kind of abrasive but not very abrasive, and that works quite well on things. And one of these, this is just a plastic scraper. It looks very simple. I've had it for years, but it's used, for example, to remove the outer casings of cameras. Underneath the attractive black leatherette finish, you'll quite often find the screws that are hidden behind, and you have to remove it. And using one of these means you're not going to damage the bits that you take off. I've got the corresponding bits for this camera here, so that one would go, not the wrong way around, that one would go that side, and this one would go this side. And by gently lifting at the corners and getting one of these underneath it, you can remove it without causing any damage. They're also useful for poking around inside and generally for getting into places. Very useful tool, use that a lot. Lens grease, if you've got a lens that's got a stiff focusing mechanism and you're going to strip it down, get the old grease out. Some lens grease is useful to have, don't need a lot of it. What we got here, this is another soft brush, looks like a lipstick, but it's a brush, I think. Can't remember right. I thought it was, it's a push rather than a twist. I thought it was like a lipstick. But yeah, another little lens brush. This is an old Kodak one. To put this leatherette back on, this is the glue I use, E6000 Plus. It's a contact adhesive, but it gives you a little bit of wiggle room before it sets to get the thing in exactly the right place. And also once it has set, you can remove the item again using one of these plastic kind of scrapers to get underneath it and lift it back off again. Whatever you do, don't use super glue. I've got a couple of cameras that I need to repair and I can't get the leatherette off because it's been super glued on, but I'm going to have to damage the leatherette to get it off. So don't use super glue. What we got, this Hyper Tough, that's another glue that I've got. Onto fluids now. We've got contact cleaner, very useful for electrical connections. If you see my Pentax 6.7 video, I cleaned all the shutter speed selectors underneath the top cover with this, and it solved all my issues with the camera locking up with an awful lot of dirt on those contacts, and this brings those contacts back into being in lovely condition like new. So yeah, contact spray, contact cleaner is a really useful fluid to have in your arsenal. What else do we have? Oh, you're going to laugh at this one. This is nail polish remover, and the reason why I use it is because it's got an awful lot of acetone in it. If you look there, it's 98% acetone, or 98% acetone, and acetone's really, really strong to start with, but it can also be incredibly useful. Quite often, sounds strange, but they used to use nail varnish to lock things into place. So sometimes you'll come across something and you'll see like there's a little bit of a fluid leak around it, and you'll find that that will be nail varnish, and this is a way of taking that stuff off so you can then unscrew the screw. It's used as a locking mechanism. So yeah, back in the day they used nail varnish for that, and this is a good way of getting it off, using a well ventilated area, because it will get you high. It's not the nicest of chemicals. Light machine oil is also very useful. This is one of the ones I use, just general purpose handy oil. A thin oil, often called sewing machine oil. You don't want anything too heavy and you don't want too much of it. Again, you can apply it with a cotton swab, or on some cameras I've seen people injecting it with needles and things. Canon squeaky shutters, for example, is one where they inject a light oil using syringes and needles. Finally, hydrogen peroxide 3%, and this is used, or I use this for clearing fungus in lenses. If you've got a lens element that is got fungus on it, hydrogen peroxide seems to get rid of it quite well. And then yeah, rinse it again afterwards in distilled water and clean it as you normally would, and it does do quite an effective job of getting rid of fungus on lens elements. So that's hydrogen peroxide. What else have we got here? That's contact cleaner, I've already done that. And another really useful tool to have in your arsenal is a multimeter. You can measure voltage, so you can check batteries with it. Having a supply of different kinds of batteries that you know are okay is another good thing. I've got batteries everywhere near enough. I've even got old mercury batteries that still work, still got power in them. So yeah, a voltmeter is really useful. Also for fault finding through cameras, you can see if there's a voltage coming from somewhere or going to somewhere. You can also measure resistance as well, so you can use that for continuity checking. to see if you've got a broken wire, to see what's going on. Again, if you've got a number of wires, which wire goes to which place. You can tell that using a multimeter. They're not that expensive now. This is a digital one. I think this was about 10-15 quid, something like that. So yeah, they're very useful things to have around the house for checking continuity and voltage. Like I say, a good supply of batteries, all different sizes, SR44s, LR44s, AA's, AAA's. There's loads of different batteries. They're called 2CR5s, CR123s. There's loads of different batteries, wean cells. So yeah, I keep a stock of all the different batteries, so when I get a camera, I know, hopefully, unless it's a really unusual one, that I've got a battery for it. I would suggest wearing gloves. I don't tend to, because I don't really like latex. I don't get on with latex at all. So, but I would suggest wearing gloves, particularly if you're handling lenses, because it keeps all the grease and muck off of you. Even when your hands have been washed, there's still muck on them. So yeah, gloves with lenses is a good idea. If you can tolerate plastic or rubber gloves, then fine, I'd suggest using them. Internet's a great source of information. If you've got a camera that's got a particular problem, the odds are somebody else has been in the same situation or is in the same situation. So by doing a search, okay, you shouldn't be promoting Google, but Google's got a lot of use. Google search has got a lot of useful information about issues with cameras and known faults with cameras. I didn't know anything about the Minolta issue with these capacitors leaking until somebody in the comments mentioned it, and then when I researched it, yeah, there was a problem. And I have got one of those that does have that issue, so I know it's the capacitor and I know how to repair it and I know what part I need, all from the internet. So there's a lot of useful information on the internet. Manuals, there's an organisation called Butkus, Butkus, a guy in the States. He's got instruction manuals for almost every camera. Every time I've gone to his site, he's got the user manual for the camera that I'm looking for. If I get stuck, I don't normally tend to read user manuals, as you probably know if you're a regular, but he's got a stack of manuals on there about how to operate them and things like that. There is some useful information in there, like, for example, the Canon A1 I bought that I thought was broken, and apparently that's in the owner's manual, which I did look it up afterwards, and that fixed the problems. The camera was fine, it was just down to operator and user error. So in summary, get yourself a few little tools and bits and pieces together. A lot of this stuff you can have around the house. Some of it you'll have to buy, but it's not expensive. It's not going to break the bank.